Did it record? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Now you just need to consent verbally to like this interview.
Yes, I consent.
Okay. And did you get the questions? I sent them to you ahead of time.
Yes, I did. I'm pulling them up here.
Okay.
So talk to me a little bit about what this class is for.
This class, it's a REGSS course, so it's race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality studies.
Yeah.
And I'm a women's studies minor, and so this specific class is called Teaching to Power. And it's just like dismantling, the structures and all that fun stuff.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And so are you in undergrad?
I am. I'm in my last semester. I'll be graduating next month.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So let's look at these questions. Oh, I should introduce myself. I'm Maddie Kennedy. I am the manager of community affairs here at Thrive. And so I work on kind of advocacy opportunities, any sort of community engagement or outreach, and then work on kind of getting our message out in the community so that people know about Thrive, know what we do, and kind of understand the demographic we work with a little bit better.
Okay, very cool. Thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
Before we got into the questions, I was reading about like the founder and like her story and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit about Sandra?
Yeah. So Sandra Whitley founded us in 2015, or founded Thrive in 2015. And on our website, we kind of have her like first-hand account of the story. But what's most impactful to me about Sandy's work and kind of her mission is that she took an experience that she had and recognized kind of how she didn't have support, how she didn't have community resources, how she was in a situation where homophobia caused all of these institutional barriers for her, in addition to personal barriers. And then once she got kind of older and had the capital and resources and time to help others who were in a similar situation, she found out about the percentage of homeless youth who are LGBTQ. And also we know that that population is at a much higher risk of encounters with the criminal justice system, of violence, of a shelter environment that is not specifically for LGBTQ youth and often can be unsafe or unaccepting, normally a combination of the two. And so Sandy saw that and was like, I'm going to create a space, because at the time in Texas, there were no shelters statewide that were specifically for LGBTQ youth. So that's what's really cool to me. And also Sandy, like made it all happen herself, which is very inspiring. And also having worked in a number of nonprofits, I've met executive directors and founders who are kind of doing like the big stuff. Sandy still takes calls from youth all of the time and maintains contact with the people that she's worked with, and is very exceptional. So it's an honor to be working with her.
That's amazing. I'm glad she sounds really sweet.
She is. I normally share an office with her, so I'm glad that I wasn't sharing it then, because she would have gotten really embarrassed saying all those nice things about her.
That would have been so nice to meet her, though.
Yes. I hope that you will be able to soon. She works kind of strange hours, so.
Totally cool. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. Yes. We can just go in with my first question. What is the most rewarding part of working with the individuals from Thrive?
Yeah, for me, it's about building relationships. A lot of our youth, especially in the emergency shelter, which I can talk kind of about how our programs are divided, if that would be helpful. Yeah. So we have kind of 4 major programs that Thrive. We have Street Outreach, which is a team of 2 currently that go out and work with people that are unsheltered, with different service providers who work with homeless individuals, partner with community organizations. And so they're working to find people who might be interested in getting into shelter and build relationships, provide resources, all of those things, so that if shelter is something they're interested in, they can help them access it. But we also know that a lot of members of our community are uncomfortable and very nervous about shelter. So it's about building the trust and relationship where then they can get to a safer place and recognize that it is actually going to be a safer place and not like a continued experience of violence. So we have street outreach, and then normally and kind of ideally for us, that bridges to our emergency shelter. And so that's for youth who are 18 to 24 and are a member of the LGBTQ community exclusively. And it's for up to 6 months, sometimes a little bit longer. And we provide free counseling, employment and education support, regular case management, kind of a whole host of things to try and make sure that the people that are here are supported and also have kind of stability in their lives. Because as you probably know, for anyone, being 18 to 24 is like a chaotic and difficult time to navigate.
Absolutely.
And then when you add the trauma of being homeless, there can be a lot more obstacles and difficulties. So the goal of the emergency shelter is kind of to provide an environment. But for me, one of the most encouraging things and what drew me to the work is when I work with folks in the emergency shelter and they talk about how they haven't ever had a chance to explore who they are, or haven't ever felt safe to kind of try different things out and feel affirmed and safe in that. That's really meaningful to me, because if there's anything I know about like Thrive, it's that normally our youth aren't there just because they're LGBTQ. They're there because of like a system of white supremacy and institutional violence. And that impacts all of the other things. And then just the homophobia and transphobia that comes with that system doubly impacts them. But kind of there are a lot of parts of that system that we aren't able to change and are working to, you know, advocate for, create policy, all of that good stuff. But what we can do is provide a safe and affirming space. So it's really wonderful to see the direct effects of that, and just someone being like, oh, I am trying out a new name today, or being able to talk through someone and hear how much more comfortable they feel. And then that was what I was going to share. But our other programs are rapid rehousings that operates on like a housing first model. So the idea of like, how do you fix homelessness? And you give somebody a place to live. So we help young adults find an apartment. They get to kind of go apartment shopping. We help them apply, pay the security deposit. And then with our program, rent will either be paid for them for 1 year or for 2 years. And sometimes they're able to be renewed. And then all the same wraparound services as in the emergency shelter. So benefits applications, education and employment, mental health counseling, all of that good stuff.
Very cool. Then I have a question about the rapid rehousing. If they do get that apartment, are they like safe from whoever didn't want them there? Like, you know what I mean? Are those precautions taken?
Yeah, definitely. So I think what you're hitting on is definitely kind of like a lot of our youth do have a history of some form of abuse or violence. And so we can kind of go about that a number of ways. Sometimes people just say, you know, I don't want to be on this side of town. I want to be on this side of town. And then we help them find that place. In addition, those public records aren't kept anywhere. And so there's no, you know, like number you can call and be like, where is this individual? So something that we take a lot of care about is making sure that kind of even if family members call or someone is calling to try and find out if a youth is enrolled in our program or is involved with Thrive, we don't ever give that information out. You know, these are autonomous adults, and we don't know if that person is someone that the youth would want to know or not. So we help them to do that. Every now and then a youth asks to help filing a protective order. So that can add kind of an extra layer of protection. But we do provide a number of kind of safeguards to ensure that the youth is where they feel comfortable at. In addition to that, it's not like a voucher housing system where someone has to go to certain apartment complexes. It's any apartment in San Antonio that fits within HUD standards of like a certain amount of the area median rent. So they do get to go. We normally help them find like 4, and then they go visit 4. And it's just like, you know, if anyone else was to go apartment shopping.
Okay. That's very cool. I just asked because I also work at the settlement home in Austin.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of our stuff is making sure our residents are not known by anyone in their past.
Definitely. Yeah, that's very important.
Okay. I feel like we covered a lot with that one question. So if these are repeating, that's totally fine. We can just skip them.
No worries.
The second one, what are the qualifications that determine if an individual is eligible for support from Thrive?
Yeah, so it differs a little bit between our emergency shelter and our rapid rehousing program. So the emergency shelter is explicitly 18 to 24 LGBTQ identified. Rapid rehousing is funded by a grant from Housing and Urban Development. And part of Housing and Urban Development kind of statutes are that we can't discriminate based off of any status. So criminal history, disability, any of those things, as long as we can provide them with the supports they need, we house them. So that's not LGBTQ specific, but San Antonio Regional Alliance for the Homeless does know that we provide specialized care. So a lot of times those LGBTQ clients will come to us, but we also serve people that are not a member of the community in that rapid rehousing grant. And then in addition to that, we just got funding to provide some community supports to individuals not in our housing services, so they can receive mental health care or benefit support or education counseling. And that is when we talk with people, and it gets into grant specific qualifications of they just have to be in our age range, often they're, but not always, they're LGBTQ. And then there's an area median income check that is the only kind of last hurdle. But so far we haven't had to turn anyone away.
Okay, I think it's really cool how inclusive it is, like not strictly the community. That is really nice.
It is really nice, and a lot of the challenges that come with kind of systemic barriers means that we can serve kind of anyone that comes our way. So that's been really nice.
Very cool. Okay, what is the main way youth are being empowered to be themselves unapologetically? I feel like this is really important because a lot of the time there's like a safe space, but there's not like, they need to be shown that they can be their, like who they are, you know?
Definitely. This is something that's really important to me because I think in my journey with being queer and kind of talking to and seeing other people that explicitly and implicitly gave me permission to kind of explore myself and see what fit for me was like wholly my coming out process was supported by other people and activities. And so some of what we do is just host like group conversations, and especially in the emergency shelter. I mean, those can be about anything, but often are about kind of the process of coming out of an unsafe space or an unaffirming space and coming into an affirming space and kind of what that uncovers. We also work a lot with San Antonio Gender Association and Fiesta Youth. Sometimes we recognize that as much as kind of non-peers, like older people can have and facilitate those conversations as well. There's also a difference between talking to someone who like is your caseworker and is 10 years older than you, and like that power dynamic exists, than just like other people in your age range who are also a part of your community. So we want both of those things to be present. And so some of it is just kind of like small little things, like in Pride Month, making sure that we have events that the youth can go out to that are not just with us, but are out in the community at large. So going out and going to like Pride at the Zoo and marching in the Pride March. But then also when things are a little bit more difficult, seeing how we can lighten those things. So making kind of the struggle with gender identity that might feel difficult, linking to mental health resources, but also finding a space and a time to celebrate that. So it's, I think for how I view it, it's a mix of like planned and structured activities where exploring gender and sexuality are implicitly a part of it. And then creating spaces where you intentionally are bringing up conversations that might be difficult and allowing space for kind of the pain and difficulty of that. But again, those conversations are not always going to turn to gender and sexuality. Sometimes they are going to turn to just like other life events that are difficult for the youth. But what I also find is like, even if you're just driving to the grocery store to pick up some groceries with a young adult, or, oh, this is a really fun one that I like. There's an organization called San Antonio Threads in the city, and they're up north, and we partner with them, and it's all brand new clothes. So it's like a clothing closet, but they set it up to look like a retail store.
Mhm.
And so they're really wonderful, and just youth get to go like within all of the sections. And so if they're trying out their gender identity, they might like go in the boys size clothes and then go in like the women's size clothes and get to mix and match it all. And I always see kind of like the joy on someone's face when they find something where they feel like really confident in themselves.
Yeah.
And then we normally like, I don't know, you get to have a little like fashion show when you get back. So um that was kind of a long-winded answer, but I hope that it answered the question.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. I just think
Yeah.
like it's really important that, especially being in Texas, right? Like
Yes,
you're forced to keep it a secret, but there's no shame. Like it doesn't,
exactly.
yeah, I just think they need to know, like it's fine, it's gonna get better. Because I know
And
like
there's a
in,
difference between, sorry, go ahead.
no, you go ahead, you can finish.
I think there's a difference between having a space where just people will use your pronouns and your correct name, and like
Mhm.
that's all, and a space where people are actively acknowledging, not just allowing, but like acknowledging and affirming your
Yeah.
identity. Those are two different things,
Affirming,
and both
especially.
important. Yeah. But I don't know. I think also there's a switch that I see for a lot of young adults where they go from like being kind of nervous to talk about their identity. And then even if you ask them, or if you ask if they want to talk about it, they might, but it's a little bit. And then I often see kind of a switch where then you ask them about it and it's like 10 minutes nonstop. They'll just talk about the different things they're thinking about, and it's joyful and not kind of fear-based. So
That's really good.
yeah.
That's amazing. Um, okay, let's see. I'm trying to pull up the questions, I'm sorry.
No, you're so good.
Okay, I like this one. Being Hispanic myself, are there
Yeah.
challenges associated with being based in a primarily Hispanic city, given that Hispanic culture has a history of invalidating the LGBTQ community?
Yeah. First, while addressing this question, I want to acknowledge I'm a white person. And so a lot of the nuances of navigating that space are not really mine to like claim or discuss.
Mhm.
But what I have talked with a lot of our youth about is like whether or not they're Latinx or from a different community, and whether their religious background or a number of other kind of cultural considerations have made kind of shame ingrained. So it's not just familial rejection, but then it's societal rejection and like a
Yeah.
cultural rule that you shouldn't express yourself, shouldn't cut your hair this certain way,
Hmm.
shouldn't be masculine or feminine in this certain way. And learning that as much as that culture can have scripts and rules that limit them and kind of make you smaller, also our community, like in San Antonio, just like the city, is primarily Latinx. And so
Hmm.
finding the members of your own community who can affirm you not just in your queerness, but also in your like Latinidad, like is so important. And finding a space where um, you find other people who experience certain parts of the city and certain parts of your queerness in a
Hmm.
way that is matches your own. Because like I really think it's important in our work to not just have people that are queer, but whose experience can match yours in a number of different ways. I can't support someone who is Black or Latinx the way that someone with their own, like own background, someone else who is Black or Latinx can support them. And
Hmm.
that's, I think, really important to recognize that I can still play an important role, but I also need to take a step back and realize where I and the other white members of our team like are not the go-to here.
Yeah.
And conversely, like listening when someone wants to share something with me and knowing like the members of my personal community who like would be able to speak to that more, or our staff members that would be able to speak to that more, and still being able to engage with it and not just be like, I'm afraid I can't. So I think that's what is really important to me. There's a drag king group that has supported us in the past called Los Mentirosos, and they're incredible. If you've never seen them live, you should really look them up.
I need
Um,
to.
yeah, they're awesome. Um, but just having opportunities like that, we went to a Queer Diaries event with our youth, and it was specifically like you can tell when someone speaks to your experience in a way that someone hasn't before, and the way that that kind of can resonate with someone and can allow them to understand their own experience better. And I think that's very important. Also acknowledging like there is and can be pain associated with that, and then kind of reclaiming the joy and the pain. You have to acknowledge both, I think.
Yeah, I think that's so important because like I'm Hispanic, and the earliest memory I have with my grandmother is she was telling me that I've got to like make this path so I can marry a rich doctor man and like have kids. And I was like, first of all, I'm going to be the rich man, right? My share moment. I was like, I
Yeah.
can do it. And so like, I don't know, you can imagine how that's been. Not really a great time with them.
Definitely. And I think especially from that young of an age, to have that in the back of your mind really affects how you can kind of grow and refuse to shrink yourself in certain ways. So yeah, I think that that's always something that nonprofits specifically need to work on more, like continuing to grow in that area. But I know that that's kind of something that as the queer community, I have really found that is special about San Antonio is it feels a lot like family in ways that I don't know. I've never lived anywhere else, so I don't know how it feels elsewhere, but
that's really nice.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Where was I? Oh, are LGBTQ youth being taught how to determine if a situation is unsafe or threatening and how to navigate any potentially dangerous incidents?
Definitely. So we work with the Family Violence Prevention Services in San Antonio and the Rape Crisis Center to kind of provide trainings to our youth and make sure that they are aware of kind of how to navigate situations like that. But a lot of times homelessness comes with trauma, and especially trauma around a variety of types of violence. And so what we also do is provide mental health care that kind of helps to reframe what boundaries or safety looks like and how you can reclaim that safety in your own life. And so I think it's both discussions with youth about if someone talks to us and it sounds like an unsafe situation, how we can talk about how they feel about that and kind of switch it from a staff member saying that sounds unsafe, are you unsafe, to helping them to kind of discover that on their own. Because especially in situations of intimate partner violence, oftentimes being told this is an unsafe situation, you need to get out, can cut off that relationship. So we have done a number of trainings to try and navigate that correctly as staff and ensure that any time that we're working to keep our youth safe, we're also working to return any agency that might have been taken from them in those conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. That's hard. That's a hard topic to hit on.
It is.
I also, this is not part of this class. I'm in another class, child abuse and domestic violence. And the intimate partner violence, like I didn't realize threatening to out somebody else counts. And I feel like we see that a lot. You know, like not fair.
I think a big myth of intimate partner violence is like how our society frames it as like man hits wife. And what we know about intimate partner violence is that like that's not it. And or it is it in some cases, but I think also like the social code for thinking about that is like racialized, it's codified by class, but the reality of intimate partner violence is not like that's not how intimate partner violence occurs. And especially in the LGBTQ community, I believe the numbers are something like 44%, if I'm remembering correctly, of bisexual women have been in like have experienced intimate partner violence, and it's really common in lesbian and gay spaces as well. And we know also in the trans community, it's even higher. And so
Yeah.
I think it's very important to directly address when even like little red flags are coming, and it doesn't necessarily seem like the situation is inherently like critically dangerous, but it could go down that path. Starting the conversation early about awareness that this still happens, even if it's not in the way that you're anticipating.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people don't really expect it to be in one of those relationships, you know, because it's not like a heteronormative relationship. So it's like,
Exactly.
oh, well, like there's no man to do the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not to
If
get like
someone's carrying
stereotypical,
me
but
and it's not like a cis-het relationship, then it's not this thing, because
right.
this thing is specifically that definition.
Exactly. Oh, is there an opportunity for parents who disowned, I want to put the quotes there, their queer children to learn more about the community?
Yeah. So we do kind of a number of things in that situation. To be honest, we rarely get parents that contact us, or parents that are still in contact with their young adults. But every time that we do, where we normally refer is to Fiesta Youth or PFLAG, because they're, and I don't want to say this like we're bad, but I think often for our youth, it's better if that is coming from a different source than where they are. Like to have that separation, their parents are still getting taken through the process and taken through the process in a way that meets them where they are. But if the same place that's kind of providing them an affirming space for the first time is also like baby stepping their parents through a process that is often very difficult and often very long, and I think that can create some difficulty. Also, PFLAG is just really good at the whole parents and family thing, in a way that I think, because we're youth centered, at least for me, sometimes it's harder to take those baby steps with parents. And PFLAG provides, again, that peer-to-peer opportunity, so another parent can talk about the process that they went through. Whereas I think often, unless I am very consciously adjusting my expectations and wording, which I've done plenty of times, but I'm like, accept your child now, today, fully.
Yeah.
And when I meet with the people at PFLAG, their like patience and empathy and understanding outranks mine a bit. Like I have all of that for our youth, and I think that it's important sometimes that, especially if that youth is still in our care, somebody else has that empathy for their parents. But so I do advocacy presentations for groups, whether it's like nonprofits or an organization or a school, talking specifically about LGBTQ youth homelessness. So we often do get, parents of Eurotrans kids in there that have a lot of questions.
Good. I kind of imagined there wouldn't be many parents reaching out. And if so, like the safety thing, that way because also, I don't know, maybe I watch too much SVU, but like, what if they're trying to come in here and say like they need the support, they want to learn, but they just want access to their kid, and then it's like a dangerous situation. That's what I was thinking too. I just wanted to hear what you had to say about it as well.
The only time that we have contact with parents and family is when a youth specifically asks us to. Says like, this is the person that I want you to communicate about while I'm at work hours, or make my emergency contact. We also have kind of different levels of emergency contact. So, for example, if a housing client, we can't locate them or communicate with them for a period of time, they can choose to allow us to contact their emergency like number in that situation or not. So it's kind of like, do you have a medical emergency and want us to contact this person? Yes or no? And so it goes down to different levels so that they get to control who's contacted when. And it's not just, you have to provide an emergency contact, and we definitely will contact them. So,
okay. That's really cool. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you elaborate on the mental health aspect of the organization?
Definitely. I think that this is like the shortcoming of our society is not having like mental health support just like free and available for everyone all of the time. Like I would love a world where like inpatient care was not often traumatic, and that's kind of a conversation for a different day. But what we provide is free counseling up to 2 times a week for all of our youth in the emergency shelter. And we have a number of counselors that we specifically work with. And then if someone else has a counselor that they have worked with in the past, we can contract with them. So it's always no cost to the youth while they're enrolled in Thrive. So that's kind of like our bare minimum. Youth is never forced into mental health care. It's always going to be their choice, but we definitely remind them that it's available and free. Then in addition, we have, if they are interested in psychiatric care or getting medication, we have individuals on our emergency shelter campus that we can contract out with. And if they are in our housing program, we work with a number of nonprofit organizations to help them get that care. Then in addition to those things, we do have formal group therapy and informal like group mental health discussions. So there's a lot of like specific licensed professional counselor or licensed clinical social worker, or what have you, mental health care. And then there's kind of the broader culture of mental health care. We're also about to start doing art therapy and music therapy, which I'm really excited about. A lot of those things have been kind of funding limited, but we just got funding for them. So that'll either start in December or in the new year, but really excited about that. And then there are a lot of things that I think focus on being open about mental health and discussing mental health, but in a safe way. So like a group journaling session or a book club. But oftentimes, some youth are really open and willing and want to talk about their mental health all of the time and will tell anyone about it. And other ones, or other people, will really prefer their privacy. And I think it's important to kind of meet people where they are, but we also know that in order to kind of thrive, and I didn't mean to use our word name. Whenever I do that, I feel very cheesy. But in order to thrive in kind of your career, go back to school or anything like that, if you don't feel safe in your body and mind first, those other things are going to be really difficult. And unfortunately, it can often take a long time to be and feel completely safe. But we want someone to get out of a crisis mode and into like a maintenance phase, so that we know that like physical safety is at least guaranteed.
That's really cool. I was just curious because I also feel like a lot of times mental health just goes unnoticed and there's not really any emphasis on it. And I think it's so important. I'm also a psychology major. I don't mean to be tying in like all aspects of myself, but
no, you should.
I just think that's cool.
No, I think it's very important. And I think a big cultural thing that we often run into, and I say cultural thing, but I think it's more societal, because I think it's different for people based off kind of their cultural backgrounds and like how their family taught it. But I also haven't met anyone that doesn't have like a stigmatized shame around therapy. But so many of our youth are like, therapy doesn't work on me. I don't want to go to therapy. I'm not crazy. So overcoming that process, which like is also, I think, the way that my family talked about therapy, like I think it's very ingrained. Overcoming that as a barrier, and thinking about it more as like, you can go as much into mental health as you want, or you can just have a person that helps you to process things. You can view it in a lot of different ways and use it a lot of different ways, is really hard, and also takes a level of trust with kind of our team that doesn't always come immediately.
Yeah. That whole stigma around it is just the way the media portrays it. Because you think therapy or like mental health, you think straitjacket. And it's like, you don't have to be crazy to need that help. Like you can better yourself without needing, I'm going to go off. I can't.
I got
frustrating. Okay. Are members actively forming long-lasting bonds by joining Thrive?
Yes. So I think that there are 2 ways I could give this answer. There's like the picture perfect answer, and then there's, I think, the more real answer. And I think that we work to facilitate opportunities where, whether it's with staff or with other youth who are in shelter at that time, or people that enter housing or any of that, we work to facilitate healthy boundaries and relationships there. And we do have youth who, left our services 4 years ago and just need something or need a little bit of help, and we'll still get a call and we'll be like, oh my gosh, it's great hearing from you. So we have so many times where it is like that. The other kind of more realistic thing is that for various reasons, and for just the person's individual situation, for substance use issues, because of like a specific conflict in their life, there are other people that come in and don't form those bonds and choose to leave shelter for various reasons, or this isn't the right time for them to be getting the services that we have. Because also, I think Thrive is, none of these things are required, but Thrive is not just like a place to sleep and shower. We have regular meetings are required with your case managers, and all of these things are going on. And for some people, it's not the time in their life to do that, or they aren't ready for that, or that's not what they want. And so I think when a youth needs and wants matches up with what we provide, yes, or even if it's like kind of matching up, so it's not completely overlapping, but there's a little bit of overlap, then yes, I think those bonds happen with their peers or with us. But I think there are a lot of situations where, for whatever reason, it's not where the youth wants to be at that time. And what we hope to cultivate is that they still know that we'll be here, even if they have chosen to leave or choose to not pursue an apartment and return into kind of being in shelter, that they still can come back and seek our resources if that's something that they need. So our goal is, like, even if they aren't kind of having the picture perfect Thrive experience that we kind of hope and dream everyone will have, that they know that they can still trust us.
Okay, that's really cool. Thank you for the good answer and your honest answer.
Yeah, because like I have a lot of stories I can share that are like people, I understood my gender identity and I got lifelong friends, and now I'm like in school and really happy. But the reality is, like, we can't make that happen for everyone, and that might not be what that individual wants, and that's okay. Sorry about my raspberries, I got hungry.
No, it's okay. Okay, we have 2 more questions. We're almost done. I'm so sorry.
No sorries needed.
I just don't want to take up all your time. I thought this was gonna be much quicker. Okay, what are some goals you hope to accomplish by the end of the year?
Ooh, by the end of 2022 or 2021?
Yeah, well, I guess now it's like a
month. No, that's okay. That's good. So I talked a little bit about grant funding. We recently grew a lot. So we're able to provide a lot more services, and we also got people, like specific employees, who can help with benefits applications, so SNAP, Social Security, things like that, and an education and employment specialist and a housing transitioning. So a lot more staff. When I was hired at Thrive, their existing staff load was 5. So I was number 6, 5 staff. I was number 6. And we are now at 21. So I think a lot of it is making sure that our youth feel comfortable with the new people, because for a lot of folks, that's like trusting someone new is a big transition, which I really understand. But also that our staff members feel like very comfortable and understand their role in times. Like our goal work environment, I think, is a place where if someone has an idea or wants something to change or sees a problem, that they can bring it up. But of like comfort in a job, at least for me, takes time. Like I can't 3 weeks in be like, excuse me, I think you should change your process. Like it takes time. But I think trying to communicate both with clients and with our staff how you can create that like trust and comfort, because ultimately we provide much better care and resources when kind of our ducks are in a row on the back end. So when we're just like, when you think about it as a nonprofit organization, if all of that stuff is like taken care of and like the nonprofit industrial complex can take the backseat, then that's when we're providing the best care to our youth, when all of the rest of the stuff comes naturally. So that's my goal. I think my other goal is, which this is like a little one, but I also do some like procurement fundraising stuff. And we're hoping to get emergency preparedness kits for all of our youth so that if something like the storm happened again, like, you know, they'd have backup power packs, they'd have like the emergency blankets, because they all have normal blankets, but if it's 36 degrees inside of your apartment, like 2 normal comforters isn't going to keep you warm. Like I had to gather all of the blankets in all of my life to be warm. So we're trying to make sure that just like little needs like that are met. And I'm hoping to get that done by Christmas. So that's a little thing. Oh, and the other fun thing that I'll share with you, that's a little bit more lighthearted, is we have a holiday party every winter, and our youth get to like fill out a wish list, and then someone like buys them all the gifts on their wish list and gets it for them. So I just hope I successfully organize that. It'll be my first year being in charge of it. So, which, I mean, I think I will. That's not something that I like don't think will happen. I just would like it to happen well.
Yeah. That's really exciting.
Yeah, it's really fun. And we're doing it in like shifts for COVID reasons. So that it's not 200 people in a room, but it's like 15 people in a room at a time. So that'll be good.
Yes. Very cool. Okay, well, this is my last question. I saved it for last because I don't know, I really like it. Okay, working with homeless LGBTQ plus youth, what would you say to the parents who love their children conditionally and plan their lives out before they learn to talk, not leaving any room for queerness? I feel like we see this a lot, and I just want to hear you address it.
Yeah, definitely. So I think for me, I often strip to the most kind of basic goal as a parent is to keep your child alive. And this will be kind of a heavy answer. But what we know, especially about trans youth, is that having one affirming family member increases your rate of survival 2 times. So just one affirming family member. So little things like choosing to respect your child's choices in gender presentation, even if they're changing, and using a child's name, using their pronouns, all of things like that. I think my goal for parents would always be to fully affirm and accept and love every part of a child and to encourage anything that they want to try. But at the bare minimum, your goal as a parent should be to keep your child alive. This is the way to respect these choices. And you'll get down to the path of like embracing queerness, but you need to start with the life-saving ones. And so I think if there is anything that I could pass on, it's that like, this is not, we don't really have room for how you feel about it or your opinions on it or kind of your baggage. You need to put that to the side and keep your life up, you keep your child alive, and then deal with that baggage on your own. And that's where organizations like PFLAG and Fiesta Youth and other things like that can help you. But your child's survival has to come first. And that is what we see with trans youth, especially, is that is so critical. So safety and survival come first. And then as a parent, that has to be a priority.
Yeah, there's just like, I think it's incredibly harmful with these gender reveal parties because like gender doesn't mean anything, and like educate yourself on that before you're gonna like pop out a pink
Explode
balloon.
a balloon.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I think that often parents kind of get bogged down in their feelings and their experiences of their child's life and forget that like that child is having their own life with their own experiences.
Mhm.
And that as a parent, your job is to not have your kid have the life that you want them to experience. And like, you should not be centered there. They need to be centered.
Right.
And a lot of it, I do think, comes down to, at least initially, like literacy. People, if you think of it as a literacy issue, like people are not yet fluent in like gender and sexuality.
Mhm.
But I think that parents can overcome things that they don't understand by just making a choice to like
Mhm.
affirm and accept, and then like doing the research. My
Yeah.
message to like 50-year-olds everywhere is like, learn to Google questions that you have.
Yeah.
My life would be easier if like the older people in my life were just like, Google search, what does non-binary mean?
Yeah.
That would be great. So I, yeah, I think for me, it boils down to that. And I have a hard time even understanding how you could negotiate with that question. It's like, I do this, it helps my kids to survive. I don't, it doesn't.
Yeah.
You have to choose that one.
Mhm. They just tend to
The
place
other,
more.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say they place more value on like the idea they have in their head before this person exists. And like you're just not letting them have their experience. Like, you don't know what they're
Yeah.
gonna be like.
Yeah.
That's not.
I think the only other thing that I would bring up specifically in our work is that while family rejection is often kind of the tip of the iceberg in causing youth homelessness, and like it is just that, the tip of the iceberg. The analogy that I always use, which sometimes makes people a little uncomfortable, is like an Alamo Heights junior in high school. If they're rejected from their family, odds are they aren't going to become homeless. Like
Right.
they have the tip of privilege on their side that is going to
Mhm.
help them and support them. And what we see is that it's people that are disabled, people that are coming from foster care, or people that are coming from generational poverty. And then to go on top of those things, they are rejected from a family environment or unsafe in a family environment because they're LGBTQ. It's
Mhm.
normally not just family rejection, occasionally, but overwhelmingly not. So oftentimes, the other question for our youth is that, like, even separate from being LGBTQ, their families were not a safe place for them. So sometimes for our young adults, family needs to be something that is really separate and not something that they revisit.
Mhm.
And that could be a different journey than someone who had a really positive relationship with their family until they came out or until they expressed themselves.
Yeah.
And so learning to kind of respect all of those things and help someone to maintain and hold a boundary if their family is not safe, kind of in any respect, I
Mhm.
think is important. And also teaching someone who it was unsafe, like you do not owe this family yourself
Yes.
if that's not going to be safe for you.
Exactly. There's like that belief that just because they're your family, you have to love them and you have to like deal with them. And that's not true. If they're harmful, get out of that situation. You're
Yeah.
not trapped there.
Yeah. We want our youth to be safe first and
Mhm.
foremost. And they are the ones that get to choose who gets to share that life with them.
Yes. So important.
Yeah.
Mm. Those were all of my questions. I don't
Okay,
know if
perfect.
there's anything else you wanted to say
Hmm.
or
Kind of think. You had really great questions,
thank you.
and congratulations on almost graduating.
Thank you.
Um, but let's think. I think the only other thing that I would share that I think I encounter a lot is I think often for our organization, people are willing to kind of travel to meet us on accepting and affirming LGBTQ identities, or they're willing to kind of like affirm and view homeless people as human.
Mhm.
And the conflict sometimes occurs when someone wants to understand and affirm both. I think sometimes people, like, as I'm sure you were well aware of, often there's a dehumanization of individuals experiencing homelessness. And I think often also people are unwilling to like understand the diversity of experience of the LGBTQ community, and that not everyone's like identity and experience being gay is like going to Heat on a Saturday and watching a drag show. And so I think for our work, one of my goals more long-term is to get to the place where more people understand what it means when kind of those worlds collide, and the specific challenges of that. And a lot of that really does come down to like, are you willing to view this population as fully human, or are you not? And I think that that's something that gets me very upset, is just like, how could you not? I do not understand. And so that would be my only message, is that like, I think empathy is an overrated word. Just like acknowledging other people's humanity as equal to your own is kind of the concept I prefer. Like there is no, people are not more or less deserving of things based off of any factor. Like they're all deserving of safety and shelter and respect. So that's my like closing message.
Yeah, I agree with you. Thank you for sharing that. That's so important.
Yeah. Well, the only other thing I would say is if you have any other questions or like things that come up that you want to follow up about, you can feel free to let me know. I'll give you my email, because I think that we were just emailing on the like generic Thrive one. So I'll give you my contact information, but feel free to reach out if you ever have any questions.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Of course.
I don't know how to stop the recording.